Thank you, Aqueduct, for sponsoring this video.
You either bought or you're thinking about buying a dark bottom pool, right? Maybe it's for that luxurious, sophisticated look, a shimmering sapphire, or a deep, mysterious lagoon. They look incredible most of the time, but if you're like most dark plaster pool owners, you probably notice something a little bit off. Maybe it's a splotch here or a streak there, or it just doesn't quite have that deep, uniform color that you were promised. Well, you're not alone, and in this video, I'm gonna pull back the curtain on the 5 things that nobody tells you about dark plaster pools before you buy them. Things that can leave them looking dull, faded, or worse, and more importantly, how to keep yours looking gorgeous. Stick around because the secret is not what you think. Welcome back to Clearwater Chronicles. I'm Kevin, and if you already have a dark plaster pool, you know the struggle's real. Dark finishes, whether they're black, gray, or deep blue plaster, are becoming incredibly popular. They absorb more sunlight, which can naturally warm your water, and they look just stunning. But they are also high maintenance, and they have unique quirks that can make pool ownership frustrating if you don't know the secrets. Today we're diving deep, so to speak, into the most common dark plaster pool problems, why they happen, and what you need to do to solve them. Let's get started with the first and often most confusing issue. The first one you need to know, and this is kind of a big one, is that dark plaster is rarely, if ever, perfectly uniform in color. What you often see as splotches or unevenness is actually called mottling. And believe it or not, it's a completely normal characteristic of all cement-based finishes like plaster. It happens during the plastering process due to variations in trowel pressure, hydration, and curing. Think of it as natural stone. It has variations. The key is to understand that a truly uniform, factory-painted look is unrealistic for plaster. So if you're seeing some slight color variations, don't panic, because it's usually not a problem. Calcium scale. For dark plaster pool owners, this is often the biggest enemy. That unsightly white chalky film or streaks that you see, especially along the water line on steps or that beautiful tanning ledge, that's calcium scale, and it shows up way more on dark surfaces than on light ones. It loves dark plaster pools because the surface water gets hotter, which encourages calcium to fall out of solution. The fix, it all comes down to LSI balance. LSI stands for, I'm gonna try to pronounce this right, y'all, Langolier Saturation Index. If you have a dark plaster pool, you need to keep your pH balanced between 7.4 and 7.6. And your total alkalinity needs to be between 80 and 120 parts per million. And for dark plaster pools, I'd recommend aiming for the lower end of that pH range, 7.4, to discourage scale. And here's a pro tip. Consider using a quality stain and scale control product regularly, like this one by our sponsor Aqueduct. Products like this chelate minerals, preventing them from bonding to your plaster in the first place. This can be especially crucial during fill-ups or if you live in a hard water area. Okay, let me pause for a second. We just talked about mottling and LSI balance, and if you just had kind of an aha moment, and this is the kind of detailed pool advice that you've been looking for, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button right now. It's totally free, and it's a single best way that you can tell YouTube this video was helpful, which in turn helps us reach and educate more pool owners. I really appreciate it. We've got 3 more critical issues to cover, and this next one is something that can permanently damage your plaster if you're not careful, and it almost always happens when your pool is brand new. I'm talking about fading and discoloration. Often this isn't due to bad plaster, but improper pool startup or the wrong tools. Aggressive brushing with a stiff brush, or even worse, a stainless steel brush, can actually abrade the surface and remove the darker, richer pigment. You should never use a stainless steel brush on plaster, especially dark colored ones. Always use a nylon bristle brush like the ones I have in front of me. They're both nylon brushes. One has a little bit softer bristle than the other one. This one is a little softer than this one, so this is the one I'd recommend during startup, not only for that reason, but also because of this whale tail, which I'll show you in a second, helps to improve your ability to keep your brush pressure a little more consistent. Any soft nylon bristle brush will work. I just like this one because it provides downforce and I don't have to use my own muscle to brush the pool. It uses the water pressure against that whale tail to do it for me, and it allows me to be very consistent in my brush strokes as far as pressure goes. Just be gentle and consistent as recommended by your installer. This also helps remove plaster dust and promote an even cure. And if you're getting a new dark plaster pool, make sure your builder provides you with a detailed startup guide or hires a reputable company to handle the first 30 days of care. It's an investment that prevents permanent damage, and it's one of the times I'd tell you that it may be worth it to hire a professional company rather than trying to do it yourself. Beyond the brush, how you brush and vacuum can be paramount for dark plaster. Because dark surfaces absorb more heat, they can be slightly softer or more prone to marks if you're not careful. A good robotic cleaner is a lifesaver. Look for one designed for all surface types. They're gentle, they're thorough, and they prevent you from having to drag around a manual vacuum all over your brand new dark finish, which can sometimes lead to scuff marks. If you are manually vacuuming your pool, use a vacuum head with soft brushes and move slowly and deliberately to avoid scratches. The goal is always gentle and consistent care. The last major problem is that the increased heat from dark plaster can sometimes make it more prone to algae growth if your sanitation isn't spot on. What often looks like a general dullness or discoloration in a dark pool could actually be the beginning growth of algae, or just a buildup of fine dust and pollen that's harder to spot. The solution here is consistent sanitation and filtration. Keep your free chlorine levels in the 1 to 3 parts per million range, and run your pump for enough hours a day to ensure proper circulation. If you're unsure about how much to run your pump, I've got another video on that you can check out. And if you suspect early algae, a good shock treatment followed by brushing is your best defense. The key is catching it early, because on a dark surface it can blend until it's a much bigger problem. So there you have it, the 5 things that nobody told you about owning a dark plaster pool. You got the normal mottling, the battle against calcium scale, preventing fading from improper startup, using the right tools, and staying on top of algae and dust. We own a dark plaster pool, and I wouldn't change it for anything, but it does require a little more informed care. But hopefully, armed with these tips, you'll be well on your way to enjoying that luxurious aesthetic for years to come. I'll link some of the tools that I use down in the description. Using those links really helps the channel, and I appreciate it. Before we go, I want to thank our sponsor, Aqueduct, one more time. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a dark plaster pool? And if so, what's your biggest challenge or your best tip for keeping it looking pristine? Let me know in the comments below. I read and I try to respond to every single one of them. Thanks for watching, and remember, belly flops build character.